Lincoln City 2, Liverpool 7, a goal fest at Sincil Bank as the Reds cruise through to round 4 of the Carabao Cup. Welcome to the debrief here on the Blood Red channel with myself, Guy Clark, and Matt Addison. Minamino and Jones catching the eyes, debuts for Tsimikas and Jota too, and the captain's armband finding its way to Divock Origi. There's more on his showing to come shortly. But Matt, first up, goals. What wasn't there to like tonight?
Well, a little bit of the defending left a little bit to be desired, but I think that's picking at a few holes, to be honest. I think Liverpool were very, very good going forward, obviously very fluid, and I think that's probably a testament to the coaching staff, really, given it was essentially a completely new team. Obviously, Van Dijk started, which was a little bit of a surprise, but certainly in attack, it was a completely new look Liverpool, and they very much look like a Liverpool team that you would expect to see. So, yeah, as I say, I think that's a testament to the work that goes on the training ground and also the sort of transfers that Liverpool have done as well now. Of course, Minamino did a fairly reasonable job of replicating what Firmino does. Thought the wide players as well, and you've got that quality from Xherdan and Shaqiri to open the scoring fairly early on. So, yeah, it was a comfortable evening for Liverpool.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with us on the live YouTube chat, do exactly that. We'll try and get to some of your talking points as and when we can. But Matt, I think we best start talking about Curtis Jones, to be honest. He was given man of the match and got 2 goals. And at times, he was really running the show tonight.
Yeah, he doesn't lack confidence, does he? He's one of those players that he just wants the ball at every opportunity. We saw it with Thiago at the weekend, where every single thing went through him. And it was, almost a similar sort of thing, I thought, tonight, where Curtis Jones was just instrumental to everything Liverpool did. And he's one of those players that you've always seen him be good on the ball. It's almost been that decision-making that he just had to get right, and certainly he did that. His finishing tonight was excellent. I think it was the second one, wasn't it, that got a little bit of a deflection. But again, it just shows from the edge of the area for him to take that shot on rather than try and find a pass, the sort of level of confidence and ability that he's got. And for somebody of his age, what is he, 19, to have that sort of assurance on the ball and off the ball as well, I think he just fitted into Liverpool's team absolutely perfectly. And, we've spoken about, Adam Lallana moving on and Liverpool needing a replacement for him. I think certainly they've almost not just got a replacement, but probably an upgrade in terms of the number of minutes that he's going to play this season. So, yeah, it's exciting times. The fact that he got himself onto the score sheet, I think, will obviously do him the world of good. It's something I've seen plenty of times at the academy, and it's just so good to see him being the exact same player that he was for the under-23s as soon as he steps up to that first team as well, because it'd be very easy to try and change your game, to try and do things slightly differently, but he's just so assured in himself that he just kicks off exactly where he'd left off with the youth team. So yeah, fantastic to see, and as I say, it's going to be a big confidence boost, not that he needs it going forward for future appearances as well.
Yeah, and we saw, obviously, the bits we saw of him last season. We saw that he likes a shot from range, certainly in the FA Cup, in the game at Anfield against Everton, in which, of course, he got the winner in that game. But we saw him playing, obviously, in that midfield role today as well. He certainly looks to have filled out for just a 19-year-old. And as you say, he doesn't lack confidence. And as I say, we'd seen him before in sort of more attacking areas, but he looks as though he can certainly be an option for Jurgen Klopp in that midfield. I suppose that's exactly what the Cup game is all about. It's about giving fringe players an opportunity, and Jurgen Klopp saying to them, go out and impress me and show me what you can do. And Curtis Jones definitely did that tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It was a similar sort of situation, I thought. I think he came on as a substitute when Liverpool played Arsenal last year, and it finished 5-5, obviously. Arsenal are Liverpool's opponents in round 4, so we may well see that sort of thing again. I'm sure he'll start next week in that one rather than come off the bench. But yeah, it was one of those where he played a little bit deeper, played as one of those number 8s in the midfield and looked really good. I think that is his position long term. Obviously, we've seen him play out on the left as he's been a younger player coming through, and obviously it's a little bit more responsibility, I think, to play in the middle of the pitch. And yeah, again, he stepped up and he did that, and to be able to score goals from that position is something that Liverpool don't really have. It's obviously an area of the pitch. What Marko Grujic playing tonight, probably Liverpool's 9th or 10th choice midfielder in that sort of position. But Curtis Jones obviously offers something different, as I say, and if he can keep finding the back of the net with regularity, that is something that's going to put him ahead of one or two others. So yeah, it was certainly a promising performance, and yeah, I can certainly see him getting plenty more appearances in that position as well. I think long term, he is going to be a midfielder. He's got all of the attributes going forward and defensively as well to play in that role.
Yeah, Mike D says Curtis is going to be the new Gerrard. Certainly takes some thinking that and whets the appetite for maybe what's to come in Curtis Jones' Liverpool career. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. Fahim Arif says Minamino was perfect. Let's talk about him then, because he also got 2 goals. As you've already said, he sort of played in that Firmino-like position. And we spoke a lot about him during pre-season, how excited we were to maybe see Takumi Minamino break out on the Premier League stage this season. He's had to be patient so far, but another one who sort of gave the boss a timely reminder tonight of exactly what he can offer.
Yeah, he's been unfortunate after a really good pre-season not to start 1 or 2 games since then, and he really took his chance tonight. Obviously the 2 goals, but it's just overall performance as well. It was a really promising step forward for him again. Obviously, again, a lower league opposition, it's a bit of a cliche, but you've got to show a little bit of strength and that sort of thing. It's not quite the same as playing a Premier League defence. It's different attributes that are needed, and he very much stepped up in that regard. I thought he came very deep, particularly in that first half. He was getting onto the ball and didn't really see too much of it sort of in forward areas until a little bit later on in the half. But as soon as he did, you saw the quality that he's got. He can find some brilliant finishes, and it was more the sort of open play, the linking up of the play, the doing the Firmino job that impressed me more than the actual goals themselves. But of course, as a striker, you've got to find the back of the net as well. And I thought he showed that he can do both sides of that. So yeah, really promising. I'm still not 100% convinced that false 9 role is the best position for him going forward. I think he's probably a little bit better with somebody else in front of him a little bit deeper. But look, it's one of those. He obviously can play a number of different positions. We know that's why he's been brought into Liverpool's team, and I thought we really saw a good performance from him. So yeah, again, it'd be interesting to see which, if any, or possibly both of the Arsenal games next week that he starts, but he's certainly given Jurgen Klopp some food for thought.
Yeah, I thought he took his first goal really well. It was sort of everything was going on around him on the edge of the box, and he just sort of strode up to the ball and curled it beyond the Lincoln goalkeeper. A few people getting in touch about him. He obviously did have a night to forget, but interesting point you make, obviously, on Minamino and that dynamic of the forward position. Certainly with Diogo Jota coming in, there is more, I suppose, even competition for places now for Minamino to see how he fits into the team, but he is a versatile option. And Yazan Salah has actually got in touch with us and says thoughts on Jota. He sort of came on for the last half an hour or so. Didn't see all too much of the ball, but as I say, he was on sort of fleetingly to sort of get his Liverpool debut.
Yeah, he had a couple of moments. That shot that narrowly was dragged a little bit wide, and I thought he did okay. Obviously, it's difficult when you come onto a pitch where the game is already won. There's such a margin between the sides, and obviously for him, it wasn't the ideal place to get his debut, but I think we're going to see a lot more of him. I think it would have been beneficial actually for him to have started the game tonight. I'm surprised that he didn't get his debut right from the start, but look, it's one of those. I think it's going to take a few months for him to bed in properly and find himself into the position that Jurgen Klopp wants him to be. Obviously, he's played out on that left side for Wolves, but it's a slightly different role. There'll be certain tactical things that he needs to get used to, but we've seen it with loads of players. Takumi Minamino, the obvious example we've seen, as I said, over pre-season and certainly 1 or 2 times this season. He's been really, really good in the Community Shield. I thought he was excellent, and tonight as well. So if it takes sort of 6 or 7 months or whatever it's been for Minamino, for Jota to do exactly the same thing, then it's not going to be an issue. Liverpool have got far too many players in those areas. Really, they can go and play. Xherdan Shaqiri was really good tonight as well. So yeah, plenty of competition, but I think what Diogo Jota will do is not just improve Liverpool's strength in depth, but also make sure that those players around him, and as you say, those ones that are competing for places, get better. But yeah, he's going to take a little bit of time to adapt. But I thought it was promising that the sort of link-up play that he had today was a decent start, and I'm sure it's something that he can build on.
Yeah, and I suppose for then the likes of Minamino, Jota, and also Curtis Jones, these guys who we would expect to play a fair few first-team minutes through the course of the season. Before the Champions League gets underway in, I think, sort of 3 or 4 weeks' time, I suppose having these Carabao Cup games coming where they are coming at, Jurgen Klopp does speak a lot about fixture congestion, but he has got a big squad this season. Therefore, given what Liverpool have got to sort of be prepared for this season, I suppose actually these games sort of keep those players' eye in, and they do keep them sharp for when they may be needed for the Premier League. So it might not all be bad news in terms of the amount of games Liverpool have to play.
Yeah, it's that thing of the big squad, isn't it? We saw today the news that the Champions League is going to allow 5 substitutes, which the Premier League isn't going to do that. So I think that was a good sign in terms of Europe for Jurgen Klopp to be able to use his squad a little bit more. But yeah, certainly these Carabao Cup games, I wrote something that went out this morning on our website to say that Liverpool have got a genuine chance now of going fairly far through the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup this season, even though there's so many matches. They've got such a deep squad now. It's more what we've seen with someone like Manchester City, who've dominated those tournaments over the last few seasons. So I think that the fact that they can use these tournaments almost as giving players minutes who deserve them, but also keeping them ticking over for the more important ones, I think is a good thing. But more than that, it does present a genuine opportunity for them to go and win a tournament. Obviously, we know now that this season's semi-final of the Carabao Cup is only going to be one leg. It's not going to be a double thing as is usually the case, which is a little bit of a pain. I know Jurgen Klopp's spoken in the past about being annoyed at that coming in January, having 2 extra games at a crucial period of time. That's not going to be the case this season. So, yeah, I certainly think that Liverpool's team is strong enough. Certainly the squad is strong enough if you put out a similar sort of 11 to what we've seen tonight. Obviously, next week is Arsenal. I think Arsenal will probably make it a similar number of changes again for that one. It's not a huge priority for them either. If Liverpool can get through that one, you just don't know. It's only, 2 games then off potentially being in a final. So, look, there's still a few games to play. There's still a few different priorities for Liverpool, and probably the Carabao Cup is at the bottom of that list. But I still think it's an opportunity in a couple of different ways this season.
Yeah, certainly. Well, let's talk about another couple of the individuals before getting on to the Liverpool defending, because a few people getting in touch with that, and it wasn't fantastic tonight, we do have to say. But before we get on to that, let's talk about Xherdan Shaqiri, who got the ball rolling with a brilliant free kick early on in the game, but also Marko Grujic. He was on the score sheet as well and in the side, and I suppose there were a few eyebrows raised before the game as to the team selection from Jurgen Klopp. Van Dijk obviously started as well, but the lesser spotted Marko Grujic, of course, he's been away in Germany, and Xherdan Shaqiri, who's been hardly spotted as well, both getting on.
Yeah, let's start with Shaqiri. I think he's only had 5 or 6 minutes of action so far this year, which obviously is not a great deal. So it was one of those games where, again, he needed to be on the ball. He needed to be creating things and making an impact. And I thought he very much did that, obviously. Not just the free kick, which was excellent, an absolute rocket into the top corner, but other things as well, the general play, the movement, that sort of thing, against a tight defence, which didn't show much ambition to go forward. Obviously, that's the kind of player that you need to have. So, look, I think there's not really any doubt about Xherdan Shaqiri's quality. We've seen, obviously, particularly in that period in 2018-19, where he was absolutely on fire. If he can keep himself fit, there's no doubt that he can be a huge part of this team. And obviously, Liverpool, as we've said, have got plenty of options in those forward areas, but he is sort of that X-factor player that you can bring off the bench if you're a goal down or whatever. You know that he can just find a moment or two where, whether it's a cross or a pass or a shot, he can just create something out of nothing. So the crucial thing for him is just that he stays fit. It's as simple as that, really, for him. There's no doubt that Liverpool would like to keep him around if he is fit. It's just he hasn't been, frequently enough over the last few months. In terms of Grujic, it's a little bit more difficult to see him getting too many minutes. I just think there's so many players ahead of him. I said before, there's sort of 9 or 10 midfielders in that area. James Milner, not even on the bench tonight. There's so many players ahead of him in the pecking order. You wonder, where his next match comes. Whether he starts next week against Arsenal, I don't know. The fact that he did start tonight would suggest that there's not really any offers on the table for him to leave the club. So potentially he could stick around. Obviously, we saw there was no Harry Wilson this evening. There was no Ryan Brewster. Potentially 2 players that could be moving on. The fact that Grujic played and started potentially hints at the fact that he might stick around. But for me, I just think he needs a move away now. I think it's time. Liverpool have moved on so far since he came into the club 4 years ago. I think 4 years ago, if he'd have made this sort of progress and you just said he'd become the player that he's become, you'd fully expect him to be a regular part of this squad. But I think Liverpool have just progressed far more rapidly than he has as an individual, and it's probably time for him to move on. But a nice moment for him to get the goal, and I thought he did pretty well at keeping the ball moving tonight. He didn't have too much to do defensively. I don't think number 6 is necessarily the best position for him, but of course Lincoln didn't show a great deal going forward. So yeah, it was a decent night for the pair of them, but I think Xherdan and Shaqiri certainly will be the happier in terms of his long-term future at Liverpool. If he can stay fit, there's no doubt he can be an asset.
Yeah, maybe a chance then for Marko Grujic to have put himself in the shop window. And he grabbed a goal, so he's certainly got himself a few headlines tonight. Before we go then, let's talk about the defending. It wasn't fantastic from Liverpool, although Kostas Tsimikas was making his debut at left fullback. He not really at fault for either of the 2 goals conceded, but the 2 young lads in the back 4 had a bit of a chastening night, it might be fair to say.
Yeah, it wasn't a great night. Obviously, Rhys Williams has been out on loan at Kidderminster in non-league football last season. It's a big step up, and I assume that is why Virgil van Dijk started alongside him, and Tsimikas as well, as you say, to make his debut as well. I suppose having Van Dijk in there would have been a big thing for both of those players to have alongside them. But yeah, Williams didn't do particularly well. His namesake as well, Nico, was slightly quiet as well, not great on the second goal. Didn't do a great deal going forward. Didn't have to, it has to be said. Obviously, Minamino and Shaqiri and 1 or 2 others, Curtis Jones as well, doing all of the work in that regard. But yeah, I think Nico Williams, there's no doubt again about his quality going forward. He's going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold's deputy. Rhys Williams, I think, again, similar sort of situation really to Marko Grujic. I think a move away is definitely the way forward for him. I'd be surprised if he started next week against Arsenal. Again, it could just be a case of him putting himself in the shop window. So I was slightly surprised that Sepp Vandenberg didn't play. Billy Cometio nowhere to be seen. Obviously, I think he got a little bit of an injury last week. Potentially he's ahead of Williams in the pecking order as well. But yeah, I think going forward, potentially Rhys Williams, a championship loan move or something like that, potentially could be on the cards, because I just don't see him, having gone out and really impressed last season at Kidderminster. He just needs to take the next step now. And I just don't see him getting the time on the pitch for that to be the case at Liverpool.
Yeah, no, certainly the case. Well, obviously, it's Arsenal next up in the Carabao Cup for Liverpool in round 4. Of course, they got them to come in the Premier League on Monday night as well. The next 2 games at Anfield against the Gunners, then head across to the Liverpool Echo for live blog reaction as well as match reaction over there. Jurgen Klopp's press conference in full to come here on the Blood Red channel, so do stick around for that. But from myself, Guy Clark and Matt Addison, thanks for joining us. It's bye for now.